everybody, and welcome to another podcast of Courage in Action. Today, we are talking with Cesaria and Alex, who are both in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community here in Lviv. And before we jump into this interesting, unique topic here and how it relates to the conflict and the war, I'd like them both just to introduce themselves and discuss who they are, where they come from, and their background, and how they got interested in BJJ.
Hi, I'm Cesaria. I'm 23 years old. I'm from Lviv. I've started doing BJJ and martial arts 3 years ago. Since then, I've discovered that BJJ is not only about martial arts, it's also about community and about respect towards one another. And I've discovered that BJJ started playing a major role in my life. And I've noticed there are a lot of misconceptions circling around in the social media about everyday life of citizens of Ukraine, of those who are not on the front lines. And I think talking about our BJJ community and how it has changed after the full-scale invasion, it would be a great opportunity to talk to you about that, and I think to shed light on some misconceptions that I've noticed. Because I think this is a beautiful representation of how many paradoxes are in our everyday life, and how surreal it has become, and how we do not question this surreality anymore.
Hi, my name is Alex. It is spelled with O, since it is a Ukrainian variation of the name Alexander. I'm 27, I work in IT, this is my main job, and in my free time I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a hobby. I've been doing martial arts since my childhood. I've always loved this, and I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in particular in 2017. So I'm a purple belt now.
Great, awesome. Thank you for those wonderful introductions here. I want to dive a little bit deeper into something, Cesaria, you started mentioning, and kind of discuss why we're talking about the BJJ community and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out of all of the topics and hobbies and interests to discuss related to the war in Ukraine. What is important about the community here with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to both of you, and how does that relate to the challenges around the war? Whoever wants to answer first.
Should we start from the chronological beginning, or should we start in general and then dive into chronological beginning of full-scale invasion? Because the first part of your question is why BJJ specifically? Well, first of all, as I said, this is a big part of our lives, and this community takes a big part in our lives. And also, I've noticed that a lot of foreigners do not understand what day-to-day life in Ukraine looks like. Again, as I said, they seem very confused. They think, I don't know how media portrays the Ukraine abroad, but they either think that there is zero life here, like after a nuclear explosion, zero, nothing, just some cockroaches.
Wasteland.
Yeah, well, there are cities that are now wasteland. But not all Ukraine. And they write angry comments almost everywhere when there is a video of someone doing something, I don't know, playing sports. They write, "Oh, you are lying, you are liars. We are paying our taxes for nothing because the war is over." Why is the war over? Because I see you doing stuff. And later, Craig Jones came to Ukraine. He's like a celebrity in Jiu-Jitsu world, and he came to Ukraine to do a charity seminar. There were like 200 people there, and what I didn't expect to see from the BJJ community, even abroad, the people started writing comments in his Instagram like, "Oh, why are you there? They are like, all our taxes go for Zelensky's cocaine and yachts." And a lot of those comments, a lot. And I'm reading this like, what? How does this? How did you put this together? How did you come to this conclusion? And Also, like, we lose friends, we go to funerals, and then we go to the open mat, we do jiu-jitsu, and then we again go to the funeral. We will talk about that later, but again, this represents very clearly the paradox in our lives. We get used to it, but foreigners, apparently, they don't understand this. They can't imagine this. And since you are doing this podcast, this project, to help foreigners to understand Ukraine and Ukrainians, I don't know, I think this will be very helpful for them. I think, as you once said, that you don't find this in the news, then maybe we can shed some light.
Great, thank you for that. Olex, any thoughts on for you also as to why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is important to you and to your community, and then we'll get into how the war impacted the community here on Jiu-Jitsu, but from you on a personal level, what's important to you about it?
I guess that everyone has got some sort of hobby. People usually get together and they stick together. So even if something happens, like sort of distress, as the major distress that we have for the entire nation, for the entire country we live in, this is the first place where we go for advice, for a question, for any sort of help that can happen. That's what happened from the very first day of the war. And this is like a family, a sort of family. People get together in sort of tribes in many different ways. Like music unites people, different musical bands or some movements, some charity projects, like biking communities, all sort of stuff. And Jiu-Jitsu, and martial arts in general, this is just another thing that brings us together. And since this is sport, this is something that let our negative energy, we let it out. We'll like spit it out and just forget ourselves. When we roll and we train, we forget those negative news that surround us. So thanks to this physical training, we like clear up our minds and our souls in this way.
And also, I'm very grateful to the BJJ community because I'm cross-training at other gyms. At MMA, I sometimes come to freestyle wrestling, and I want to say that this spirit of community, this thing when you can come with any question to your teammates, it's not in every gym. In Lviv, from the gyms I train in, everybody is respectful and decent, but I wouldn't say that we're strangers. We're strangers. We come, we train, and we go home. So there is no such a good-hearted community. So this is not.
That's what Jiu-Jitsu is popular for.
Yeah.
It actually this is the same thing for the entire country, for the entire Ukraine. That if you do boxing or kickboxing, also many gyms in MMA, there's different atmosphere there, different vibe that people very oftentimes they come there to smash each other, to prove something. And there's like a lot of negative energy that is directed towards other people, towards your opponent. Whereas in Jiu-Jitsu, it's way different. One of the main principles is that you try not to hurt your opponent so that you can come over and train the very next day. So we try to be as safe as possible. And also it's very known for being intelligent sort of sport, that you always think in advance, like two, 3 movements in advance. You have some sort of techniques that you already have prepared. That's why people all around the world, also celebrities like Mark Zuckerberg, trained Jiu-Jitsu, Tom Hardy, and other people like that, Sam Harris, of course. And also the same vibe that I mentioned, that people are way more friendly. They bring less negative stuff on the mat.
Yeah, and when we let this negative stuff out, we do it in a kind of safe manner, in a way that you would not harm anyone unless you really wanted to. So nobody is gonna do some stupid stuff that can result in a stupid kind of injury that would send you to the hospital. That almost never happens. We learn how to let all this evil out in a ecological manner, as psychologists say, ecological.
Thanks for that. I want to come back to those topics. Those are really great, and me not being-
Excuse me, I wanted to add, you said about we are like, we're smart, we think ahead before we make any movement, we calculate.
Well, I do. I don't know about you.
I sometimes do that, yes.
It comes with a belt.
So Jiu-Jitsu is translated as gentle art. There are a lot of jokes about this, that Jiu-Jitsu translates gentle art, but often if you come and train with people who are very skillful, you will be submitted very gently, but at the same time you will feel that. You'll feel this, I don't know, pressure or something. There are a lot of jokes about gently, I'm gonna almost break your arm gently.
So you're-
Archi suave.
So you're saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like a step above Tai Chi? No, I'm kidding. So I want to come back to the releasing the negative energy. That was great. Thank you for sharing that, because I don't come from a background of martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or anything, and so hearing this kind of stuff is very enlightening on how that community differs from MMA and karate and all the other martial arts fighting. Before we go into that, I do want to kind of ask, how did the official invasion in February 2022, and I mean, we know that Russia's been occupying Ukraine for much longer than that, but with the official invasion in 2022, how did that influence the spirit of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community here? What changed? What was your perception of that on that day?
A lot of things. So first of all, we had been preparing even beforehand, because it was obvious for everyone in 2 months ahead that there's going to be war. We didn't want to admit it or believe it 100%, but still we already took action in preparation to that event. And in our community, I offered myself to organize first aid training, because you never know what's going to happen, but you have to be prepared, and at least to be able to help your friends, your family, in case if some cruise missiles will land here and affect some of us. And ironically, on our very first day of the training was at 8 a.m. on February 24th, when the war broke out. And the first call that I got was from my coach, who called me. I answered, and he asked me, "So, is it still on?" I was, "What?" "Well, our arrangement. So, are we still meeting?" I asked, "Why?" "Haven't you heard? The war broke out." I was like, "No way." He said, "Yes, it happened." And then I took
When? At what time? What time?
7 a.m. 7 a.m. I was about to wake up and start.
Okay, so he was the first who told you that.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was my coach. And I thought for a little, like for 10, 15 seconds, get the thoughts together, and I answered like, "Sure, of course it's still on. Like, it's relevant as never, so we have to get some knowledge as soon as possible. And also like get together and at least talk this through." The first day for Jiu-Jitsu community was to get together for medical training and learn some useful stuff, some useful things in case of missiles landing in our city. And actually that's what happened, because there were cruise missiles launched and they were all over Ukraine, beginning from Donbas region and ending Lviv and Ivano-Frankivsk region. So these are the most western parts of Ukraine, close to Polish border. Then what we started to do, we also have a Telegram chat where we chat and have some news or some discussions on Jiu-Jitsu matters. And that chat, it became like donation chat, because first thing that we started was asking, asking questions, asking what to do, suggestions, some things. Then we shared the news, what's going on. We asked each other, are we safe? Is everything fine? Then we started donating money. So we have this is probably like the first thing that happens during the war is this fundraisings that happen every day, and we do the same in our Jiu-Jitsu club. And we do this without even any second thoughts. We don't even ask why, what is it for. We just send money as much as we can afford. And we started doing this from the very first day.
Yes, and I wanted to emphasize again about the kind of community that it is, how much you trust people, because I don't think that I would write to my MMA coach during the first day of war because he's my coach, but we're not best friends. But in BJJ it was normal. During the first air raid, sirens, everyone was writing something, you know, how are you? Have you been hit? No, or something like that. And again, when people write, create banka, we call it monobanka in Lebanon. Yes, a jar. Banka translates as jar.
This is a very nice feature of one of the banks, like Monobank. This is a place where you can send the money. You can see whether the goal is reached or not, because you set the goal, for example, like 20K. Then you see like how much money is left, so you can even send. Okay, so it's 200 left. I can send 200, and the goal is reached.
Yeah, and the thing is that some people I don't even know because they train in a different group at a different time. I don't know them, I don't know their names, I haven't seen them, but if they are in our Telegram chat, that means they are part of our community, that means they're okay. Even I don't even question it, I have no doubts. I don't think, oh, maybe they are, I know, trying to...
Is he going to steal the money?
Yeah, there are no such thoughts. If they are in our community, then they're good.
Yeah, definitely. And also we shared the options for volunteering, where you can go, where you can do some Molotov cocktails. It's like the first thing that we started doing, or those kind of hedgehogs, anti-tank stuff. Maybe some contact info. There are also, this is our internal community in Lviv, but still we know many people from other gyms, from other cities. Especially from the eastern regions, and also we tried to help them, and we were asking around how can we help, what can we do, where can we find a certain contact, or help the parents, relatives to cross the border, give them shelter, whatever.
Thanks for sharing that. I want to point out something here. It's I love hearing how asking how can we help, how can we support our community members, how can we reach out was like almost instant. You know, like you said, Alex, you took a couple minutes after your coach asked, are we still meeting today? And like after a couple minutes, yep, we're still meeting. How can we help and start all these? And that reminds me of someone I was speaking with several weeks ago who had a similar experience. She came from Chernobyl when it was hit and is now in Lviv. But she remarked the same thing, that on the day of the invasion, maybe an hour later, she's messaging all her friends after absorbing what's happened and saying, hey, what do you need help with? Let's come together. Do you need to get out of the city? Do you need A, B, and C or whatnot? What is it about the BJJ community and how you described it earlier that you think lends that kind of spirit of instant help, we're going to create these groups and teach first aid and Molotov cocktails and hedgehogs, or raise money in a Telegram channel, no questions asked, because we trust each other? Why is that there? What can you attribute to that?
That's kind of a hard question, I would say.
For me, number one thought that comes to my mind is, again, as BJJ fighters it's about being smart. How Alex said that we calculate, we think what we do. We don't just I'm gonna destroy you. No, it's about submitting someone in a smart way, and this
energy efficient way.
yes, and so this is not about simply just physical force. It also includes your mind and how you view other person, and I think this also kind of contributes to this. You are not just my punching bag. You are a human being with whom I am training, and it's like I don't view you simply as a tool to train to help me get better. We started having conversations. The atmosphere is always kind of cheerful but productive. It's everyone. It's very how to say it. You feel like you are accepted there, like you belong there. No one ostracizes you, well, unless you do something disrespectful or outright stupid. But again, if you do that, then somebody will first talk to you, like, don't do it.
Any community should do that. If you do something stupid in any community.
Yeah, so it's more about the people and not about the punching bag.
I came up also with the answer. I remember the words of the head coach. The worst thing for jiu-jitsu practitioner to hear from the coach is don't change clothes. Like, don't change clothes. You're not welcome. So if you're gonna bring some bad blood into the gym, if you're gonna ruin the community or show your attitude, bad behavior, or that sort of attitude that may injure other people, then what we do, we just remove that person from our community. So the coach says that you're not welcome here, so don't come over. So even though you pay money because it's paid section, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to do everything. It's not like client is always right. If you can follow the rules, if you can be a nice person to anyone else, if you can be a safe player, then don't come here. So we kind of keep the community clean in such a way, and we remove any bad people that can be good fit.
In my experience, it's kind of almost like people who do not have this respectful mindset, they simply just don't return. They stop coming eventually, not even because a coach told them to stop coming. No, they just at some point they just stop coming, you know. I guess they kind of spiritually realize that it's not for them. Like they just simply stop coming, and that's it. That often doesn't even require a specific
No, it depends. There are some people that need to be told directly that something's happening. They just can't understand this.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. And we kind of
Also, I would like to add a disclaimer that we are talking here is maybe someone from the US is listening to us right now, and US is a big country, and one might say, I have been to a BJJ class once or to a BJJ gym, and the atmosphere was not at all like you are describing it. We are talking about our own community, number one in our city, and in our country also, because we also know like coaches from other cities, we know people from other cities when we compete or when we do seminars, etc. So this is our experience. If you are from another country and you have suffered a bad experience in a BJJ gym, that can happen because there are evil people. Even black belts can be bad people that create a bad atmosphere in the gym. But I would say that mostly it's not like that.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. We spoke before about some specific stories that you had as far as supporting team members and some of the challenges that your local community, intimate community went through, after the invasion. Would y'all be willing to share those here and talk about those stories and those instances and how the BJJ community supports each other and those specific stories?
Yeah, sure. I would like to mention the second day, since I already mentioned the first day of the invasion. On the very second day, our head coach offered us to get together. So basically, on the first day, he said that, all right, guys, you understand that it's obvious for every one of you that all the trainings, they are canceled, and I'll bring you news as soon as possible. We'll understand what is happening, and we'll cool down. And on the second day, he offered us to come over at 4 p.m. and he'll bring some coffee, some tea, because it was wintertime, it was damn cold in Ukraine. And for the ones who are willing, they may be rolling, drilling some techniques just to relax, because I remember that the very first day we were constantly reading the news. I read like 165 pieces of news on Telegram, because the events, they were unwrapping so rapidly. And we wanted just to relax, we all were stressed out. And some of us, we just wanted to forget everything, just to relax. That's what we did while rolling. And some of the people, they could just drink some tea, get some advice, ask for help, just share some thoughts, or make some decisions, because many people, they were about to join some military units. They didn't know where to go, so they wanted to stick together and end up in the same unit with people that they can trust and they want to serve in the army. And I remember that I was one of the guys who decided to roll. And I remember after 1 hour of training, I stopped. I was having a rest. And I just realized that, damn, I haven't thought about war for an hour. How come? Is it possible? And yeah, it's possible. So you can conserve energy in that kind of way and be more efficient and helpful to your loved ones.
How many people were rolling that day?
I don't remember, maybe up to 10.
How many people in general were there?
Maybe 20 or 25. There were many people who were just scrolling the news, sharing some thoughts, or offering some things to do. So it was like one very nice atmosphere. So part of the gym is just like sitting and discussing something nice. Many people wearing glasses, because Jiu-Jitsu community consists, I don't know how that happened, but mainly people work in IT, or they are lawyers, or there's or some special forces, but mostly like intelligent kind of jobs. And it was quite funny to see that some guys with notebooks, wearing suits or smart looking glasses, and the other part of the gym is just rolling and
Sweaty.
yeah, sweating and performing
You
some
have bruises
submissions.
on your face from gi, someone scratched you.
All right, thanks for sharing those. So tell me a little bit more about two things in specific I remember discussing with you all is doing like summer camps. It's great how BJJ community is helping out with summer camps and helping out veterans with PTSD and help them get out their negative emotions there on the mat. I want to specifically ask you about something you have mentioned to me before, and you approached it and explained it in the way of how common a date like 9/11 is. And when people mention 9/11 is the terrorist attack in America, a lot of people know what that date means. And there's something specific and special to Ukraine in the date 10/10. Tell me about 10/10.
Well, before 1010 there is 24th of February, that's also like 9/11, but in global meaning. But I don't think even a lot of Ukrainians remember 1010. Okay, 1010 is the 10th of October, 2020, oh my god, two?
It was like the first massive missile attack that happened all across Ukraine. There were around like 100 cruise missiles launched, and they hit every major region of Ukraine, literally.
And especially they were targeted for our electrostances, so the
Several infrastructures such as heating stations or electric stations.
power stations that distribute like
Since
everything.
the country was preparing for winter season, so it was already getting cold. People were using heating in the houses, and that's what actually Russia decided to target, because now it's 2023, and Russia keeps saying that, oh, we're so nice, Oh, 24. Time flies indeed. So now they say that we didn't want to hit any Ukrainian objects because we think about people. We didn't want to hurt them. So they say that, but they don't mention that they didn't do this not because they spared us, but because they didn't have any missiles anymore. because they used almost all of them during 2022. So beginning from 10/10, they were repeating such missile attacks every week till the 1st of January.
To target specifically power stations that generate heat in the times of winter. So, and they generate like light electricity, and it's winter and it gets dark at like 4 p.m. And then you don't have light because they were targeting power stations every week. And now in 2024 they are doing it again. They're just doing it in a bit different way. They target like power plants, I think. But back then they were targeting power stations. And 10/10, it was the first day that happened. This has never happened before on such a scale. And we met that day in the Jiu-Jitsu gym. So our gym is on the basement level, and it was morning. I came to practice, so we are practicing, and then air raid warning sounds, sirens. So we know that there are missiles on the territory of Ukraine. But again, it's our regular Tuesday, so we just keep.
And our gym is already like naturally sheltered.
Yeah, on the basement
So
level.
we just kept training, kept going.
And so I remember we were all on the mats on the ground. The coach is showing the moves, and the light flickers. It just turns off and on, just for a split second.
And we hear the blasts far away.
Yeah, I just saw the light,
I know, we heard.
and okay, and I see the lights, and I say fuck, and the coach says, "Is that a language?" And I'm like, I said fuck because I understand that our city has been hit. If another city has been hit, then the electricity wouldn't stop working. The fact that the light flickered meant that we have been hit. And then we go on, and the light goes out. And I can say, fuck. And the coach says, Cesaria language. And I'm like, coach, we're just bombed. But okay, no fucks on the mats, okay? Doesn't matter that we were bombed. And what happened is that they targeted power stations, and we lost the electricity, we lost the communication, we lost cell phone reception. So
There was no internet, it was
Yes.
impossible to call anyone. So we stopped training right away. Everyone grabbed their smartphones and started dialing their parents, their wives, their dear ones. And we couldn't, because there was no internet whatsoever, no mobile network, nothing. Then some of the people, they said, okay, so the training's over, time to go to take a shower. But there was no water as well. So this was like the first time when we had nothing. So we were amidst the war without electricity, without heating, without mobile network, without internet, without nothing.
Yeah, we had no lights, but there are small windows on the basement level, but near the ceiling, so there was some light from sunlight.
Daylight.
Daylight, yeah. But we were almost kind of in twilight, almost in the dark, and the air raid was still going on. So there were still missiles on the territory of the country. It was still not safe.
So it began
To go
like
home.
at 8:30 a.m. and it lasted at
No,
least
4 hours.
11.
Yeah, okay. And we couldn't look up what happened because again we had no Wi-Fi and no cell phone reception. So we knew that we have been hit, but we didn't know the details. What has been hit, how, where, how far away from us, what has been happening. And at that time, because it was happening number one all over the country, and especially in our city in Lviv, but we didn't know the scale of what was happening because we couldn't check. So we were just stuck in our basement gym. Everyone was free to leave if they wanted, but to go where it would be safer to sit in the basement.
So the only thing was left for us is to keep training, keep rolling. So under this blackout, we, as already mentioned, we couldn't leave the place because it wasn't safe at all. So we just stayed there, kept rolling to keep ourselves warm since it was getting cold and there was no water, no shower whatsoever, and we just kept going.
The training wasn't finished because first we did the techniques and then we roll like in the end, and the training wasn't finished. So like, what are you up to rolling? Like, yeah. Why would we be? So we just kept rolling. We just kept doing jiu-jitsu again.
The coach just warned us to be careful because there were no lights to
almost no light, yeah.
hit anyone.
Dim, yeah. But again, the missiles that are currently being dropped on our territory is not an excuse not to do jiu-jitsu. So this is how much jiu-jitsu is part of our lives. And after that, the blackouts after 10/10, there were a lot of blackouts in Ukraine. So they were targeting power stations. So people repaired power stations partially enough to give electricity to the homes, and then bombs hit it again. So they had to start all over. And this has been happening all winter. And we had blackouts. So we had electricity like 4 or 5 hours a day. It depends on the location, on where you live, but mostly like some people had electricity only 4 hours a day, and the rest they didn't have. They didn't have it. They didn't have any central lighting. The lights on the streets weren't working. So when we say blackout, we mean total blackout. Nothing, just lights from the cars and candles and
The
flashlights.
sky was beautiful.
Yeah, it was. It was.
It was the first time when we could see like a Milky Way in the city, or so many stars in the night sky. At least like that part was beautiful.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, for us, it became normal because this has been happening for months. We lived, we won't have light for the majority of the day. But I want you to picture this. We still were training, and in the gym, there were evening trainings, but we didn't stop going to evening trainings, and we used to have open mats. That's good when everyone comes just to roll. And the coach says, yeah, but there is a possibility that at this time the generator will run out of power too, so we will not have lights. And we're like, so... And everyone came to open mat, and there were dozens of people doing jiu-jitsu, even though there were no lights. We just turned on our flashlights on the phone, but still it wasn't.
The generator, it came after that, like in a month or two. This was the standard of living. So every major business or cafe or restaurant, they had this sort of generators just to keep going while those blackouts. And before that, the coach said, lucky you, because once, like 2 years ago, I ordered some useless flashlights and some lighting that I didn't know how to use. I didn't know even why I ordered it. But finally, it came handy. So that's what he used before generator.
Yeah, and still when we had generator, it was, do you remember, it could run for a couple of hours. So if the kids, then the adults, it usually provided the...
Yeah, there are some classes like back to back.
Yeah, just for the first part, and then the another training had no light, but this was not an issue. And it was completely okay, and we were almost in the darkness and twilight. Coach just says, yeah, you can keep on rolling, just be more careful not to hit anyone else. Yeah, this is just a simple reality, doing stuff during blackout, doing jiu-jitsu during blackout, and nobody had this idea, oh my god, it's a total blackout, maybe I should stay home. Nah, jiu-jitsu is more important than blackout. You come and you train, what's the matter, it's okay.
Cesare also captured the very moment of this vibe that we had. It was that morning of 10:10. It was like probably 10 a.m. When we finished rolling, we didn't know what else to do. We just kept chatting, talking about all different things. And then what I did, I tied up 2 ropes together, made me a swing, sat on it, and started swinging back and forth like a child. And everyone was staring at me like, what are you doing? Like playing around? Like, yeah, what is left to do? So she captured that moment.
Yeah,
Maybe you can see that post somewhere.
Oh my god, I have that. Oh, why I remember 10 is because I later posted it to my story, and the Instagram reminded me, do you remember what happened on the 10th of October? Damn right, now I remember Instagram, okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that story, funny story, and that date of 10/10, the day the lights went out, well, almost went out across the country.
It did, and actually,
Nobody was prepared, and the electricity went out in almost on all the territory of the country, and the phone reception was not restored till after late that evening. It depends on what kind of cell phone operator you have. Some people didn't. It wasn't restored for another day or two. It depends what cell operator you had. So nobody was prepared to that. And that first time, nothing was working. No electricity, no cell phone reception, no power banks. People mostly didn't have power banks. And now Russia is doing the same thing, just in a slightly with a slightly different strategic. From what I know, now they target major power plants. So just to they target the source directly, and they use more missiles for one power plant, because earlier they used multiple missiles for multiple targets, and now they use more missiles just for one target. That increases the chances of it being destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard from recently, do you remember in Kyiv, a major power station was hit?
Completely ruined it. 70% of that power station has been ruined.
And Zelensky said we couldn't protect it with air defense because we
ran out of missiles.
Yeah, we have run out of air defense. This is why we couldn't protect it, because you're stalling. You're not giving us enough of ammo just to protect our. Not even the Russians say that they target
military bases.
Yeah, military bases. It was not even to protect military bases, it was to protect the civilian infrastructure that gives electricity to hospitals, for example. They just ruin it. So yeah, this is still going on.
I'd like also to mention, get back to that date and 10, how it affected me in particular. I started worrying my wife since at the very time she was in a train and she was heading back to Lviv, and I didn't know what's happening with her, whether a missile hit the train or not. I couldn't call her, I couldn't text her, nothing. And I started thinking, how can I get to the train station? It was 5 kilometers away from me, so all the buses, they stopped right away. You can't call a taxi, you can't call a cab. So I asked people around in the gym whether there's anyone who has a car, has a free time, and can get me there. So after the air raid, when it was over, I asked him to take me to the train station and pick up my wife so we can get back home. And we're in the car, we're heading to the train station. I just see all the buses that stopped in the middle of the streets. It was like apocalypse. I don't know how can we call this, but all the people, they are still underground, so they were hiding in those passings under the ground when they crossed the street. So they were hiding there. All the cars, all the buses, they stopped in the middle of the streets where they were, and that's it. The city looked completely empty. And some people, they were like small rats, just picking out of the little holes from under the ground. Then we're getting closer to the train station, and I can see right in front of us that there's a road heading forward, and on both sides of the road I can see two huge smoke pillars rising. I was like, oh shit, it seems like a train station. What if my wife was there? What if something else? I don't know. I didn't even know what to think. Then we're getting closer and closer, then we turn right, and I realized that, alright, it's not a train station, it's just another object nearby. And we got there.
Which means they were targeting the railway station, they just missed by...
Might be. And then we came there, we didn't see any train. I started worrying again because I didn't know, maybe the train was hit on its way. I didn't know why it was delayed, whether the train was waiting for the air raid to be over, or maybe it was hit. I didn't know. And then I waited for half an hour, and then the train is coming. And I was like, oh, thank God. So finally she's coming, probably she's safe and sound, and I met my wife. And the end of the story was nice, so we got back home, but it wasn't like the end of the story for us the way that we had to carry on. And there was no water, there was no electricity, and again, no water, so that means no potable water. What we did, we went to the stores. No, I mentioned stores, plural, not one, because there was no water. But people, they bought all the water, so there was no potable water in any shop, even in the smallest shop. Thank God we live near the park, so there's a spring where you can get some potable water. Of course, you need to boil the water in order to drink it, but we went there. So I got a few bottles and went to the park, and I could see the other people from other buildings coming. Then when I reached the spring, I could see a huge queue, like 100 people in a row, standing in a row and waiting to get some water. So I could literally see the worst case scenario, what happens during the war when there's even water gone. Fortunately, by 9 p.m. of that same evening, the water was back, then the electricity was back, and that major attack was not as successful as probably the Russians expected at the time.
That's why they kept doing it all over and over and over and over again for months during winter.
Wow. Certainly a very harrowing experience, not only to see all the cars and buses stopping the street and people hiding, but then, you know, to your point, you can kind of see, like, worst case scenario, people queuing up for water from the spring and what
Yeah, it was
like.
literally like apocalypse.
Apocalypse, yeah. Wow, that's intense. Thank you for sharing that 1010 story. So if everybody listening, remember 1010. So tell me a little bit more about two things in specific I remember discussing with you all is doing like summer camps, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu summer camps with guys from special forces and eastern regions such as Kharkiv and all that. And also you have a special team member that has a distinguished place of honor, I guess, in your community and unfortunately, you know, gave his life in the conflict.
It's not only one.
Well,
There are
multiple of them, unfortunately, so we already
I
have.
can recall 3, and plus 1 that has gone missing.
Oh wow! So can you tell us a little bit more about that, about those people?
Specific to our gym, maybe like that number would be specific.
Yeah.
But in the entire Jiu-Jitsu community, we have way more people. Not everybody knows them, but still, like across Ukraine, we more or less know each other. So beginning from the summer camp, of course we have many people that serve in the army now, and every now and then they have vacations, some days off, and whenever possible they try to join in and get back to our club, train a little bit, get together, see the same faces, enjoy the time. And we have a little tradition that every year, once or twice, we get together and we go for summer camp. Usually that happens in Carpathian Mountains. These are beautiful landscapes that we see there. And this is a great place to breathe fresh air, travel around, and do some team building, maybe. And we train there. And the very first summer camp that we made in summer was in February. Was in 2022, and also some guys that serve in the army in some special forces. They joined in. We were surprised to see them, but we were very happy to see them with us, and we could see in their eyes that they enjoyed the time. They were able to forget about the war, about everything else, and just get back to the community, to the civil, peaceful, and safe life. And shortly after that, we also met another guy. He was the first one who died, unfortunately. He came for regular training I even practiced with him. I saw in his face, in his eye, that he was very tired. He's seen things, a lot of hard things to bear. And he was bearing it inside himself, and he didn't want to talk about those kind of stuff, but still he wore a smile on his face. Some people, they didn't serve in the army, they kept living in Lviv, they were a bit depressed, they also lost some dear ones, or maybe they were frustrated and didn't know what to do in life. What he did, despite being so tired and so heartbroken, he was still able to cheer them up, like about himself, like as Nietzsche says, that to think about and cheer them up about himself, about his own feelings. And we spent a great time. It was great training. I was so happy to see him, to be able to touch him. And after that, he went back to the front lines, and in 3 weeks, I heard the news that he passed away. He was driving a car. This is a very common thing, since we have a lack of special machinery, heavy machinery like tanks. Very common thing is to buy a pickup or 4x4 cars that people can drive across the positions on the fields. They usually are cheap, $10K a piece, and volunteers, they bring them from all countries possible from abroad. And he was driving the same pickup, and he hit a landmine. It exploded. His passengers, they survived. They were injured, hardly injured, but they survived. But him, since he hit it from the left side, by the front left wheel, he was the one who passed away and took the hardest hit. And the entire community was literally heartbroken. The only thing that I could see was his face, his eyes, when we were rolling, when we were talking, smiling. And then it was very hard to bear the thought that he's not with us anymore. He was young, I remember, like 30 years old. He didn't even have kids. He was a very intelligent man. He was like a polyglot. He knew multiple languages. He could speak English, Spanish. He was still like learning Chinese, just like for himself. He just enjoyed it. He used to work in IT, and so he was a very bright person. Then what we did, after hearing that news, we waited for the body to be back to our hometown, and we learned about the funeral date. We all got together, and it reminded me some sort of like tribal community when we all recognize each other, when we getting to the church. It was like a church where all the soldiers get for the ceremony, and I saw everyone coming with wearing glasses from our community. There were dozens of our people there. And after that, the body was brought to the Mars field. This is a special place on the funeral where military soldiers are buried in the name of God of War, Mars. And when we got there and the body was buried, then a cross was risen above the grave. There was another heartbreaking event that happened. So the coach, with tears on his eyes, he put a belt on his cross on one side. So he was promoting him from blue belt to purple belt in such a way. And he hated that it was happening in such a way. But this is like very symbolic and very important thing to do for a team member, because belts, this is like something, a sign of recognition for us. So it's very important. And then, since he used to be also a football fan, football hooligan at the time when he was very young and foolish, and then the other guys from his football club, they also came over and they put a scarf on the other side of the cross, like on the left hand of the cross. And at that very moment, everyone just burst into tears.
And I think he was obviously in our Telegram chat, and I think for a long time I once was scrolling through all the people who are in our chat, and I came across his name. I think now his account is deleted because it was
After 1 year, they deleted.
But before that, I hope I still have a screenshot that his name. We won't obviously mention names, but his name and Telegram shows you like was online at this day, this hour, and it was online for the last time in Telegram at, I don't know, 10:41 or something on the exact day, like a couple hours before. I don't know, I made a screenshot. I hope I still have it. Yeah, that his name, and he was online. Just like, such a simple thing, you know. You brush teeth, you check your messengers was online at that hour, and it was recorded in our chat for some time. Yeah, now it's deleted. I told them.
Yeah. Next thing that we did, it was the very next day. Coach also announced that we're gonna have a training. It's gonna be like a tribute to this team member. So we're gonna roll in his memory. So it's like another training, but this kind of for this kind of training, everyone tries to show up. Like whatever happens, we must be there. So there were dozens of us. I don't remember, maybe like 50 or more. So everyone who could show up, who was in the city, he showed up. So we said some kind of words in his memory, why he was important for us, why we loved him, and then we had a proper, nice rolling in the name of this to let all the emotions go. So it's also a kind of tribal thing to do, something in memory of this person, something very symbolic, and this kind of training was also very important for us and symbolic. This is what we do every time when we have, hope we won't have any more members passed away, but that's what we do. We always have this training tribute in his memory, and coach always announce a speech in memory of this guy. I'd also like to mention a few other people shortly. There was another guy who was also very young. He was in his 20s. He was a designer, also a very bright person, and I think that he was even more useful in the city rather than as a regular citizen, rather than a soldier, because he was very helpful volunteer from the very first day of the work. He rented an office in the very city center, and what he did, he just turned this office into a shelter for the displaced people from eastern regions, and they could have rest there and bed and safe place to stay as long as they needed before they will move on. Usually they were moving across the border to the Western countries. So the same thing happened with him, the promotion, the tribute, and we were very heartbroken to hear the news because he didn't fight for a while. It was like he spent like a month or two on the front lines, and even his mother said that he was way more useful here because he was doing a lot of volunteering. It was way more important for other people probably than fighting there. But it's like very subjective opinion, but I also share this thing. Also, there was a guy from Crimea. He wasn't exactly in our club, like in our gym in our city, but
He used to cross train, like he used to come.
yes. He came here quite often, and he was very close friend of one of our coaches. So he's originally from Crimea, this peninsula that was annexed in 2014. What was ironic that he was a native Greek descendant, that his ancestors, they came to Crimea back in like before Christ, like 200 to 300 BC, because during this Greek state, a lot of Greeks, they moved north across Black Sea, and they had towns in Crimea and Kherson region. We still have some places, some leftovers, remnants there. And he was actually, his ancestors, they were directly from Greece. They were one of the first who came to Crimea. That was ironically. And he had, after Russian occupation, he had to leave Crimea, and then he joined joined the army, and he was fighting against Russians. It was ironical because he was the one whose land was taken away. His parents, his ancestors, they were there living on that land before Ukrainian Cossacks, before Russians, before everyone else stepping on that soil. And he put his life fighting for his place, for his home. And when that happened, he was probably the first one who actually was killed in action. And our coach was heartbroken, and I remember that it was hard to get him back to normal life. It was so hard for us to cheer him up. We were always trying to joke, bring the same jokes that he loved, doing everything possible. And it took him probably a year to recover after his death.
I wanted to, so I remember one of the funerals that I didn't went to the funeral of, we can't say the names, so I'm going to say a man number 2, a guy number 2. This sounds very silly, but anyway, okay, a guy number 2, because we can't say names. And if I make up a name, I will forget it. Sorry, I'm bad with names. So I remember his funeral was on Saturday, and I was at work, and I couldn't go. And on Sunday, I had a day off, and I remember we were having a kind of a competition, but competition solely in our gym, like not with other people, like closed-in competition. And I remember I wanted to go and to roll, but I decided not to, and I went to the cemetery, на Марсово поле, to the Mars field. I saw the belt. Belts are a huge thing in Jiu-Jitsu. Like, it's not in, I don't know, in some martial arts sports you get black belt when you're 15, and I'm 15, I'm a black belt. That's
like in karate, it happens. You need to train probably a few years, like two or 4 years to get a black belt. So it's
you pay your fees, you come to trainings.
Yeah, but in Jiu-Jitsu we have only 5 belts, and when you get your blue belt, usually you need to train for 1.5 years at least, to like 2 or 3 years. It depends like how long it takes for you.
Yeah, and it's
to get a black belt, it takes at least 7-10 years for people.
Yeah, and it's a big honor for everyone. It's a very big. It's a very big occasion for you in your life. I think everyone who is a jiu-jitsu, and I think they all remember their how they received their belts.
Because every belt means years of practice, not only like days, months, but years of practice.
Yeah, hard work.
And some people still don't wash their belts as a symbolic thing, as Japanese they used to, because they don't want to wipe all that experience from it.
And I want again to emphasize this surreality that is our life right now. That one day we go to work, then we come to Jiu-Jitsu gym and we train. The next day we go to a funeral and we bury our Jiu-Jitsu team members. After we bury them, we go and train. And after that, people, I don't know, might gather together in some kind of restaurant and just to commemorate that person. And I think, again, for us, we don't question it, that's reality. But I think for a lot of people that concept would be wild. Like, I recently buried my friend and then I did some jiu-jitsu. People would be like, are you mental? Is everything okay with you? Do you not give a shit about your friend? But in our case, this is the reality. This is how we do it. Death and life go hand in hand. This is a beautiful representation of that. I don't know how we manage that. Yeah, we just do.
Those are some very touching, very deep stories to share, and I think it goes a long way, coming back to the misperceptions we started out talking on the comments and everything, is that, in a lot of countries not at war, obviously, where they have martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's more of a fitting around a school schedule and a skill to learn and all that. And here, in this particular climate, this is a much deeper than that. This community of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically that we're talking about is very deep support for your team members, for your community, for your fellow friends in town. So I think that's really important. How do you envision the future of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community in Ukraine and in Lviv with the ongoing conflict, and whether or not it's stalemate or wherever it's headed? How do you envision this BJJ community continuing to play a role in the support you've all mentioned? And do you see it growing or expanding, or what are your thoughts on that?
Depends on how, what do you mean by the future? Because I love questions about the future. Especially I love the questions about the future from foreigners, because I think now this is such a wild concept. We don't plan things in like 2 months. This is when we want to do something and we want to plan something, and we say, oh, let's do it in a month and a half, in 2 months. That usually doesn't happen. We're like, let's wait, and we will establish that closer to the date, because I might not have a future. I want everybody to understand that, and I want you to understand that. I hate when people, it doesn't matter, even Ukrainians sometimes do that, when people behave like we already won, like already is good. And sometimes I feel as if people watch it like a movie and they want, give me a happy end, okay? Give me a happy end. Let's wrap it up, I want you to understand that we do not know how future will look like. This is far from BJJ theme right now, but I need to say it, even if what I'm saying sounds harsh and not nice. I'm not a nice person. I didn't come here to be nice. I'm sorry, guys. People are dying. Genocide's happening. I'm not nice. We might not have a future. In order for us to have, this is very indefinite. The victory, we don't know how this victory will look like, when will it happen, how will it happen, who will survive to see it, etc., etc. So this depends on future.
You never know who you will see from your friends, from your acquaintances or colleagues from work. You don't even know you're not even sure whether you're gonna see them tomorrow, because every week we have a night when Russians, they attack peaceful Ukrainian cities. They launch missiles from all over Russia and Black Sea, and they strike every major city, like tonight, even this very day of podcast. Some people, they had sleepless nights, including me, because of the sirens, air raid, and some missiles that were heading towards our very region. And you never know, maybe those missiles will be hit by air defense systems, or they gonna target civilian homes. And in some of those buildings, homes, they might happen to be your colleague, your training partner, your friend, and you won't see them again. Or you may be the one who happens to be in that place, and you won't wake up. So this is a huge uncertainty. In some way, Ukrainians are pretty prepared for those kind of events, because we are used to living with uncertainty. For Western people, it's almost impossible it's unthinkable. How can you plan your retirement or 10 years ahead and not to invest? And in Ukraine, we had harsh 90s when the USSR collapsed, and then we had even a worse time. It was beginning of 2000, because this was the time when economy was hit the worst. Then we had another war in 2015. This was when everything broke out and the economy was fucked.
Well, not another war, just the beginning of Russia invading our land.
Like again, because this was our entire history. And people, they just used to live their everyday life in such a way that they can't plan ahead, like 2-3 years ahead. They don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's what we always say. And during the wartime, like it's happening now, we face the war that we've never had before. And it's even worse, because you literally can't plan what's going to happen tomorrow. You have some sort of plans, but you should be ready every day that
this might not happen, like we might cancel or something. And I'd like to add that a lot of our BJJ members of our community are currently again in the army, and especially from our gym. So some of my friends from the gym are currently in the army. I also would like to add, when Alex said how we give advices and we can ask questions, especially how that happened in the beginning. Right now that still happens. For example, some people who think about joining the army and people who are now in the army, they write in the chat, hey, I am now in the army. If you need some additional information on how to join, where to join, how to do this.
Are you afraid that you may end up in the wrong unit?
Yeah.
Then I'm already serving this very unit. It's all right. I can help you with everything you need. So join in. We're gonna be in the same team again.
So again, every time during training, and then we do the techniques, and then we roll. It's called in Ukrainian sutочка roll, and every time because in our community this is more common. The coach says остання суточка, the last roll, and every time he says остання, I matter крайня. Because the last one is when nothing happens after that. And in this time, I don't know, maybe some of the people who I know who are currently in the army will not come back. Maybe this role that we did was really the last in our lives. No, like in my life, in that person's life. And always when it is остання, I think, the last, not the last. It's not yet the last. I don't want it to be the last, because in times like this, it might be the last. Literally, this happened. I think when Alex rolled with our friend, he didn't know that it was the last, but it was the last. So yeah, that if future. I think BJJ will progress in the way of right now. There are competitions like para Jiu-Jitsu, parallel para Jiu-Jitsu for people who lost their limbs. As a result,
and they already show up in the gym actually, from many different battalions, especially very badass battalions. I can talk about them, but they already show up in Jiu-Jitsu. Some of the guys, they don't have an arm or a leg, but Jiu-Jitsu is that kind of sport that you don't need to necessarily start standing up, and it's actually a good thing, because people, they can adapt this very flexible sport, and they can adapt it, because in boxing it would be impossible to train while you're sitting on your arse, or in karate, or another striking kind of sport.
BJJ is called Mexican Ground Karate.
yeah, something like this. And this is something that is very handy for our future veterans. So first of all, we're gonna have sort of friendly community, and that sort of camaraderie that they have even now on the front lines with their brothers in arms, and they have some sort of that in the civil life when they get back. So this sort of thing that will help them to get back to normal life, peaceful life, to social lives. So this is something of a mental health for them. Probably people even heard about Reorg organization in the UK. Probably partly because of Tom Hardy. So when Tom Hardy, while being blue belt, and he was competing, it was all across the news, Instagram posts and stuff, and he wore a patch on his back of a pineapple looking like a skull, and it was from Reorg organization. So this is a place where, like a gym, that was organized to help veterans and bring jiu-jitsu to them. And it turns out to be very helpful for them. So I think that something very similar is going to happen in Ukraine, all across Ukraine. And even our gym, our head coach, he said he's going to do everything possible to make this place friendly for veterans and bring all the means that are necessary for them to grow.
Yeah, so in BJJ, it's very, accessible if you have a disability, some kind of disability. If you're blind, it's not.
We already have this, and we already see people like this on the competition. So there are people that are blind, people without a limb. So someone's trying to heel hook them to perform a submission, but they can't because, oh my god, is it his leg? Why he's not tapping? Oh, it's not his leg. Okay. So he's ending
it's a
up
prosthetics.
Yeah.
You can't heel hook someone if they don't have a heel. Think about it.
Yeah, and also like we make a lot of fun when a blind person submits a guy who's totally fine, totally normal. But even though he's blind, still he can feel everything, and he may be even better in jiu-jitsu by using his other feelings, senses, than a regular person. So it's also like very interesting.
Yeah, so back to, I have also something to say about that. So about the future, it will be more, there will be more means for people with disabilities, for veterans to come and train. Right now there are, from what I've heard, even competitions that are part of Jiu-Jitsu for people who lost their limbs, so they can come, they can socialize, they can achieve something, they can do something meaningful. And I'd like to add about the acceptance about people who came from war and they lost their limbs. What I like, and I think what they like about Jiu-Jitsu is that what's cool about that is we are all kind of equal in Jiu-Jitsu, so it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter how old you are, we are equal. And I like this equality. Some people say, oh, you're a feminist, you want equality, so I can punch you in the face, right? Not this equality. Equality means I am gonna treat you with the same kind of decency that I'm treating everybody else, and we don't discriminate against age or even belts. Like we are all respectful in the same manner to each other. And in a BJJ gym, people who come home and they are hurt and they don't receive pity, we are sympathetic to those people, but we don't pity them. So when they come and like, I don't have a leg or I don't have an arm, we just, oh, okay, and then we just train. Before training, I asked them like, are you injured right now? Does anything hurt? Should I be careful with, I don't know, your arm, your leg, your shoulder? No, I'm fine. Oh, okay, you're fine. Okay, I'm gonna choke you. And then he's gonna choke me, do his best to choke me. Like, they do not receive pity. They do not receive this, oh my God, you lost your leg. That's bad. This is so sad. And I think that a lot of people they don't want pity. They don't need to be treated like they are lower.
Yeah, especially veterans, like they don't want pity.
Yeah, I lost a leg, so, and we do not give them pity. We treat them like equal, and we treat them like every other normal human being. And I think this contributes to the sense of normalcy. That we are alive. We have changed, but we are rolling with it. Hey, pun intended.
We are rolling with it. Nice. I like that. This is awesome. I guess I can't. I just want to express like the great strength I feel from listening to you two talk about like the support of the BJJ community, and it reminds me of one of my favorite, I think, best definitions of finding meaning and purpose in life, and I credit this articulation to Dr. Jordan Peterson. Whether or not he came up with this definition, I don't know, but he said it's finding the heaviest burden you can bear in life and bearing it and helping others bear their burdens. And so what you described from the BJJ community and the people, you two in particular, and then the people you're involved with in your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, is speaking to all those misperceptions, particularly from the West, of they're out there rolling and practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They can go pick up a gun and go to the front and fight. Why aren't they fighting? And so, what I'm hearing from you all is sometimes the bigger burden that your community is picking up is being there for the veterans and the PTSD and the non-veterans who haven't gone to fight but are more impactful in the community here as IT or renting out office spaces and rooms and all that and helping people so they can have a bigger impact through the BJJ community than if they just go be a single person holding a gun on the front.
Well, speaking of that, Cesare also mentioned that there was a huge event, a seminar from Craig Jones. This is one of the major figures in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe like the second best, the second best Jiu-Jitsu fighter, so to speak, or wrestler. And he also visited Eastern Front Lines, so he didn't show up in Kiev only, but also went to the front lines, which was very cool of him. And after posting a photo of the seminar with all those guys with huge biceps and so fit, muscled up, there were many comments from Americans, not only about how about my money, where the money go, but they also, many of them asked, why aren't they on the front lines? And while reading those, I was like, how do you know? Maybe he just came from the front lines to see this event. Maybe he is in special forces. There are police officers. For example, one of our coaches, he trains police. So maybe half of that gym was filled with soldiers, police officers, the special forces that are work in air defense, and they're trying to hit the missiles flying over Kiev. So there are people like that. And also, war doesn't consist of soldiers sitting in the trenches every day. There's a rotation going on. There are people having vacations. There are people serving in different units or training soldiers all over Ukraine, not only in eastern regions but in the farthest, closest to the Polish borders regions. Many things like this. Also, there are people that not in the army, but still they produce some important stuff like drones or military equipment, or even volunteers. So war doesn't look so simple. It doesn't have only one color. It consists of many different colors and different structures, institutions that are at play. Country, it's a very huge organism, and you can say that all these people, they just sit idle doing nothing and hide away from war like this.
Yeah, this is the first the biggest war in Europe since the Second World War, and this is the first war that is being broadcasted live. The amount of information that can be shared in social media is huge, so you can share photos of missiles hitting something, and you share posts, and people from all over the world see it, like almost right now, something that happened 10 minutes ago or a day ago, you can watch it almost live. And people didn't have that before, and they couldn't share their experiences the way we do now. So we can share how we, drink coffee, and the next day we're gonna share the sirens that tell us that missiles are coming, and people even from front lines can share their videos, photos, experiences. So this is also unique in this kind of way. And this the fact that not 100% of citizens are on the front lines. This has happened like always. People didn't know that because nobody could broadcast that almost live. If you read the remark, you will find that when Germany was fighting, they weren't all in the front lines. There were restaurants, there was all kinds of stuff. And the German soldier, I remember a scene from Time to Live and Time to Die, when he was inviting some girl to a restaurant while Germany was being bombed, while Berlin was bombed. And two pages ago, I read how her house was bombed and she was standing on the street and looking at her house. The wall is gone, it's bombed, and she has some of her possessions. And in two pages, I read she's going to a restaurant, and I'm like, what? You are in the middle of the war? How? And now I'm like, oh, that's how. Okay, got it.
Because the war doesn't consist of only tense emotions and feelings. It's mixed. So it's natural for you to forget about things and keep going and try to create some good vibes and emotions and to have them as many as possible to be able to survive, to keep going through that. And also I'd like to mention that how important and how much stuff regular people do, beginning from the ones who are sitting in the trenches and ending up with the ones who are going to cafes or sitting in the cozy, warm offices. We have a guy from our gym, he works in IT and he's got some savings. He's over 30 years old and before the war, he had a plan. He already had a plan to build a house. He got a lot of money saved. He was like, I don't know how much money, but it was like way more 50K. It was around like $100K. And what he did, he donated all that money throughout a single year of the war. Imagine that.
Wow.
I asked him, so how about your house? Because I didn't know that fact. And he said, well, I donated all that money. I was like, how come? He said, it's a lot of money. But he said, well, yeah, a little bit there, and here it goes, 100K. It's gone. So it's not like some people think or say that we rely only on Western money. You can't even imagine how much money people put every day. Whether they're rich or whether they're poor, they still donate a lot of money. And it's a huge percentage of their income.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's very, very touching too, and that's a good point. A lot of people here are giving their own resources, their own money. They're sacrificing in ways other than what you would traditionally think of in a war sacrifice of going to the front. And to your point, Alex, war's not so simple. You have people in the background that are really making ultimate sacrifices in other ways that are ultimate to them. Gotta give up his house. His savings for his house. That's, how long did it take him to save that money and his dreams of having that house, and then, to show his love and support for his community and his country. He just gives it away like that. It's very heartwarming, very inspiring.
He was saving that kind of money like for 10 or 20 years, and it will take him another 10, 20 years to recollect that money. But during this time of war, I asked him, like, do you save money? He says, no way. It's like, I've got a family, but as well, I donate a lot. And he himself, he helped to people leave those harsh regions that were under attack, like Zhytomyr or Kiev region, like Irpin and Bucha. He himself helped him and financed completely the way of those people to help them to leave and to get to the safer places.
It's awesome. I want to kind of wrap it up here with.
Oh, also I'd like to add something. What's important that in our BJJ community, in our BJJ gym, there are people. I can 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think it's more than 4, much more, who represent our country on international competitions. So this is very important when, how they say you have to remind the world of Ukraine. This means taking place in art, I don't know, in music, in cinema, in all kinds of groups, of teams. And this is very important that people from our gym are representing our country on international, on the world championships. And they win and they bring medals. And thus they remind...
And rise Ukrainian flag.
Yes. This is also very important. Shout out to you, girls and boys.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I have a question directed at both of you personally, and thinking from the terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but even on a little bit larger scale of martial arts. You know, a lot of these communities, they have their own carved out, not dogma or Ten Commandments, but kind of like a creed, a personal belief, right? That in a certain community or a certain form of martial arts, you have a creed that you follow and stick to, some rules and all that for life and for belief. And listening to you two talk about the BJJ community, it's evident that has a stronger, deeper fabric of human connection than many other communities, martial arts or not. Do either of you have your own creed, your own personal belief that you maybe don't have written in words on a wall somewhere, but it's something that's in your head or in your heart, or that you carry with you to your rolling on the mats or in your everyday life, that you would want to share here with everyone listening?
For me, it's, number one, for me, there is this gentle art, Jiu-Jitsu gentle art. In Brazilian, it's arte suave, and I have a word that's suavemente, which means gently. And in fact, if you go and train Jiu-Jitsu, it doesn't matter, it's like, you know, there is no touch karate or something like that. So it's not gentle in this way, because people are still gonna, I don't know, put knee on your belly and you're like, ah! And so it's not gentle in the way that, oh my baby, but it's still gentle. And this is kind of paradoxical vibe of being harsh, but at the same time gentle, and rolling with it, because BJJ is about finding new solutions from different positions. So when you want to do, for example, a move and you can't do that because your opponent defends, there is always opening for another move. So it's always changing. You're always finding new ways to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And this is, I think, important for life, even when finding new ways how to live, how to overcome some troubles, and being honest, being true, and being kind, but at the same time, kind but not soft, like harsh but in a good way. You know, stand in your ground. This duality.
Thanks, Michelle. I like that. Being kind but not soft. That's very good.
Yeah, because in order to protect your truth, you have to have teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a phrase from a play, «Беззубий рот не має права на будь-яку істину». A teethless mouth has no right for any kind of truth, because you will have to defend it. We live in a world where someone will come for you one way or another, be it during war, or I don't know, you're just walking down the street or somewhere else. You will have to be able to protect your ground, to stand your ground, to protect yourself, and also not be unnecessarily destructive to others. So to understand your force and to use it in the right way.
So something probably more popular was said by Jordan Peterson, that a good man is a very, very dangerous man, but the one who chooses not to use this strength, being dangerous, for the bad means.
Mm-hmm.
So something like this. And what I like about Jiu-Jitsu is probably the thing, the way it was derived. So back then, Jiu-Jitsu, it was not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it came from Japan, so it was called just Jiu-Jitsu. And
GJJ.
for now, we have two different martial arts because it was split into judo and into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Judo focused more on the standing, on takedowns, and Jiu-Jitsu focused more on wrestling in parterre, on submissions and ground game. But the very moment how it appeared, Jiu-Jitsu, it was like, as Cesario mentioned, gentle art that, and there was a guy in Japan and he was observing a winter landscape and he was looking at the tree and he saw the trees that were breaking under the snow weight because the snow was heavy. It was sticking on the tree branches and they were getting broken because the tree was stiff. It was very strong, it was very hard, but it was stiff. And there was another tree. It was very small, tender, soft. But those benches were not breaking because they were flexible. So they were just bending and sweeping away the snow that was on top of it. So this was probably like the main principle of Jiu-Jitsu, of Judo, what we're trying to do, we're trying to conserve the energy, not to waste it. We're trying to use the leverages instead of direct, straightforward, dull force. So instead of trying to take a hit, we can actually move a little bit away from the hit, from the hand, and use this energy against the opponent. That's what happens during the takedowns. When you bring the person on the floor, that's what happens on the ground during the ground game. And this is the great thing, that you can control, you can be very strong by using techniques, by using your brains. And this sort of control, very smart control, is very useful and cool power. It's very nice to feel it. And the moment when people start doing it, wrestling in particular, whether Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, whatever, they feel it and they get like junkies. They get used to this. They crave it. So after, if you do Jiu-Jitsu at least like a year, and you stop training for a week or two, then you feel this craving that, oh my god,
I have
need
dreams.
I need these
dreams.
movements, I need this feeling of control to grab something.
If I don't roll in the gym, I have dreams that I choke
Yeah.
people in my dreams.
There you go.
I go crazy.
Or getting choked.
Yes, this depends
Each to their own.
Yes, how I did the last time I was in the gym, and if I did good, then I have dreams that I choke people, and if I did bad, then I have dreams that my chokes don't work. And I'm like, why did this not work?
Yeah, so there it is.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for sharing. I think that was amazing. I think it's a very great insight specifically to the BJJ community here in Ukraine and how it's impacting in obviously a very positive way the war effort and the victory effort there. So thank you both for sharing. I appreciate your time. And
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the opportunity and for doing this project to help people find out more what life in Ukraine is like, because I don't know how media portrays Ukraine abroad, but from what I heard from you, for example, or from other foreigners, is that there is not enough information about common life, about common